Hello and welcome to Brave Beaters for the first time in 2021. A couple of days ago, Omega launched the new Speedmaster bracelet, a beautiful bracelet with an amazing clasp, and towards the end it has attached a watch with a new caliber, but that's not important, the bracelet matters. In fact, this 2021 version comes with some amazing subtle features and we're going to compare them with the actual Moonwatch. Besides that, we will review the actual hesalite Professional Speedy, trying to capture the entire spirit of the Speedmaster and the most important events across time. So, enjoy! I guess the time has come. Honestly, wasn't so much time to worry that the Moonwatch will be extinct. That was out of production and we all thought the Moonwatch version will disappear for a long time. But here we go, 1 month later, the new Moonwatch has landed on both hesalite and sapphire versions. And I do welcome this relaunch, because I feel that Omega, from one reissue to another, it comes closer to the original, to the iconic model, offering us more features and meaning. So I spotted a lot of subtle details that needs to be explained compared with the actual version. Firstly, the most obvious element of this 2021 reissue is the bracelet, which is an inspired bracelet from the past but recreated on a modern way with 5 links per row. So I think they did an amazing job. The bracelet tapers from 20mm to 15mm. The middle link starts smaller than the side link, where sliding towards the clasp they are bigger, so the taper is dramatically made on the side rounded links. The short beautiful clasp measures a 15mm width, inspired from the vintage models, with a polished logo positioned outside of the clasp so it can be easily pulled out. The pushers are oval, in the same rhythm as the bracelet links. And yes, I would say by far, this bracelet complements better the twisted lugs design of the case than everything proposed before. On the dial there are quite a few subtle details that sends this watch back in the 60s. Starting with the grain texture on the dial, which I consider it more pronounced, and ending with the buried subdials or the angled seconds track. We can spot the lume indices that are clearly interrupted by the edge of the outer seconds track. The areas mentioned seem to have the angles better defined than the previous version, this feature making room for the new domed hands that curves towards the exterior of the dial. Another important update is the logo, definitely an increase in preciousness. This one has an applied metallic logo, but only on the sapphire version, where the hesalite version keeps the printed logo as it was on the previous version. And probably the main reason why this chronograph was refreshed was because Omega housed a new beater inside of the modern Moonwatch, the Co-Axial caliber 3861, a manual wind caliber that achieves the Master Chronometer certification, has a power reserve of 50 hours and it's anti-magnetic up to 15,000 Gauss. So they are available on hesalite and sapphire sandwich versions, both selling on a bracelet or on a fabric strap for a smaller price, obviously. Besides the steel version, we can spot 2 amazing gold versions, where the white gold dial is amazing but pricey as well. And surprise, price-wise, the new Moonwatch does not cost more or a lot more than the older version. The hesalite version on a bracelet is $6,300, which means 5,100 euros or 4,600 pounds. Now, depending on the relationship that you have with your ID, you can obtain a discount, I suppose, for it. But I suggest to push a bigger discount for the discontinued version. I assume they will still have available stocks until the older one vanishes. So I do think this is what we all want, a better reliable Speedmaster, where design-wise is getting closer to the original one. And hopefully I'll have the chance to grab one for myself this year. And I'm pretty sure you'll be convinced to consider this Moonwatch if you will watch the rest of this video, because this is the Brave Beaters channel purpose, to bring in front of you interesting historical facts and features that might make you reconsider or love such a watch. Envision yourself as an astronaut tied up to a chair, speeding up with 5 miles per second on a rocket that sends you into complete darkness. In void. You gave up on everything that you are, on your role as a human from the earth. You are heading into unknown, not being sure of your faith. The only thing that you see on the windshield is a small yellow dot, and besides that, nothing. Void. All of a sudden, uncertainty starts to flood you, doubting of your decision to leave everything that surrounds you, life. You've made all the necessary preparations on Earth with only one purpose, to survive to tell the story. Still, in your mind, you know that you are supported by an entire team, but in case you won't exist anymore, someone else will take your place. And all of a sudden, you started to doubt. You started to remember how great was being you, being alive, enjoying nature, breathing air, loving your wife, your kids, your parents. Still, you are advancing towards void, towards darkness. To encourage yourself, you're looking around you, seeing electrical equipment, lots of blinking dots and supporting gear being there to help you survive. You are looking at your own equipment and you see on your wrist a mechanical chronograph that is meant to help you survive, but compared to the technology that surrounds you, it seemed to represent, well, nothing. And all of a sudden you are starting to laugh, because a small mechanical wristwatch can replace your actual condition as a modern astronaut. Suddenly you are becoming confident, and the journey towards void seemed to be safer. Which it happened. In reality, the story of the Apollo 13 mission was about to mark the Speedmaster's fate forever in the history of mankind. But chronologically, the Speedmaster was launched in '57 with the trilogy next to the Seamaster and the Railmaster. The Speedmaster's purpose wasn't to please the Earth customers with its conservative looks, it was created with a specific purpose. To be the first timekeeper that supports the exploration of unknown territories outside of the Earth for the first time in history, precisely the space and the moon. Of course, it wasn't easy. The Speedy had to compete with other 4 brands that submitted watches for assessment to NASA. One of those watches, a pocket watch by Hamilton, never made it to the testing phase because it wasn't a wristwatch. Plus other 2 competitors, the Rolex 6238, the pre-Daytona model, and the Longines Wittenauer 235T failed the very first tests. This left the Omega Speedmaster as the sole survivor and starting down the remaining tests alone. The Speedmaster reference CK2998 was the first Omega to reach space, when the astronaut Walter Schirra wore the watch during the Sigma 7 mission on the Mercury program in 1962. As always, the timepieces were issued as a vital piece of mission equipment, the Speedmaster being developed for critical backup moments, if the astronauts ever lost the capability of talking to the ground or capability of their digital timers. The only thing that they will have to rely on will be the watches on their wrists. So the Apollo 11 mission was successfully accomplished in 1969. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first and the second men to walk on the surface of the moon. This historical moment baptized the Omega Speedmaster as the Moonwatch, the first wristwatch to reach the surface of the moon. Indeed, a major problem did occur for Apollo 13 just 2 days after the launch, when an oxygen tank exploded on board. It crippled the service module and plunged the astronauts into a dangerous situation. The mission to the moon was abandoned. Now it was simply about getting the crew back home safely. So NASA worked around the clock to overcome the increasingly volatile situation. But it was the final hurdle when Omega's essential precision was called for. Because the mission had drifted off the course by roughly 60 to 80 nautical miles, it meant that the module would re-enter Earth's atmosphere at the wrong angle and bounce back into the space with no chance of recovery. Therefore, to manually readjust the course of the craft, an exact 14-second burn of fuel was required. There was simply no room for error. Without their digital timers, Swigert instead used his Omega Speedmaster chronograph to time the burn, while Lovell guided the craft using the Earth horizon as a guide. One thing to add, you can find the Apollo 13 movie with Tom Hanks on Netflix if you want to reimagine the events back then. Unknown to many, Snoopy has been working with NASA since the late 1950s, even before the first man stepped on the moon. On May 1969, Apollo 10 was launched from Cape Kennedy on a Saturn V rocket. The mission served as the dress rehearsal for the Apollo 11, and its payload included a lunar module named by the crew as Snoopy. The name Snoopy was chosen because the lunar module was sent to snoop around the surface of the moon looking for a safe landing place for Apollo 11 mission. Established in 1969, the Silver Snoopy Award was inspired in part by the US Forest Service's success with Smokey the Bear. Smokey the Bear became popular with the American public as a friendly, easy-to-recognize mascot. NASA thought correctly that Snoopy could be the same for the space program. Later that year, on October 5, 1970, Omega was presented with NASA's Silver Snoopy Award as a mark of gratitude for its contribution to the success of human spaceflight missions. When this prestigious award was first created, Snoopy was chosen as NASA's official mascot because of the ability to keep things light in serious situations. Needless to say, it's considered to be an extremely high honor, as less than 1% of NASA's workforce has been awarded a Silver Snoopy. Since then, Omega launched 3 Silver Snoopy models, the black one in 2003, the white one in 2015, and the silver one on a non-limited version in 2020. Very interesting, I consider, to be the 2015 version that has highlighted the 14 seconds track that was needed to readjust the course of the Apollo 13 craft towards the Earth. So, as first impressions, I do have to say that the Speedmaster Professional, it looks like a serious tool watch. Very well articulated and very well contrasted. There is no wasted space there, especially for a tool that was meant to serve as a backup instrument in space. Every line, index or marker is well contrasted. They are all equal and bright, no matter the size of the object. These were the guidelines imposed by NASA back then to create a legible dark dial chronograph with white hands and markers, and that can be seen on the pre-Rolex Daytona chronograph or the Longines 235T. Or the mysterious Boulevard lunar pilot who was on the wrist of David Scott, who landed on the moon during Apollo 15 mission. The complete story of the Boulevard lunar pilot can be found on the right hand side of the screen. The twisted lug design, as I already mentioned in the Seamaster 300 and the Doxa Sub 200 videos, was made by the famous Huguenon Frère Compagnie. In the 60s, the brand supplied cases for the Seamaster, the Speedmaster, to the first Doxa diver, the Shark Hunter, and to the Ebenhard Scaphograph. Still, the actual case is amazingly well made. The finishes proposed by Omega are amazing. The side linear brush, interrupted by the polished beveled lugs, complements really well the articulated dial design. The caseback, as iconic as we know it, it is signed with the first watch to be worn on the moon, where the Sapphire version has a see-through caseback that unveils the beautiful manual caliber 1861. Besides that, the Speedmaster is a strap monster. In this context, I've added the 7 Friends and Watches full grain high-tech strap that adds patina in time, and it is the most comfortable strap I've ever experienced, due to the fact that it's thin and has a patent-pending material underneath that stops the sweat to reach the leather. So the Speedmaster Professional, whether we're talking about this version, the older ones, or the 2021, it provides that iconic and premium look on the wrist. It is comfortable due to the case construction, the lug-to-lug length and the height, even the weight. It's not a boring watch, it's not dull. It has the right amount of curves and details to consider it, well, not from this planet. And the most important, it qualifies as the 15th Brave Beater on the channel. So what can I say? Yes, I think the Speedmaster should be a Brave Beater on the channel, just because it's still in production, and besides that, I consider it to be one of the most important, if not the most important watch in the history of mankind, and it still provides the best value for money for its price range. So if you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel for future creative updates. And until next time, be brave, but stay safe.